This is the MHFi podcast with Carl Jensen and Doug Cunnington. We have authentic conversations about the journey to Fi, health, happiness, and some very odd tangents. We interview Fi experts, side hustlers, people on their way to Fi, and those who have reached the other side. Join us every week, and if you want the show notes and links and all that other stuff, head over to MileHighFi.com. Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the MileHighFi podcast. My name's Doug Cunnington, and today we have a special co-host guest, JD Roth. So JD, how's it going today?
Good. How are you?
Doing really well. It's been a little, chilly here in the Colorado Front Range area. We got a little snow last week. And I mean, if people listen to this 6 months from now, they're not going to care about the winter weather. But today, it's a little chilly. What's it like where you're at?
Well, Corvallis, Oregon has been pretty cold too, but it's been clear and cold. We're going through Oregon this time of year is pretty rainy usually. The rain has set in, but we're getting some clear, cool weather. So it means long hikes with the dog while we can still do them. And it's been fun.
Nice. And how often do you go on a hike or something like that? Just curious.
Generally once a week, sometimes twice a week. It's fun. So you might not know this, but Corvallis, it reminds me a lot of where you live, Longmont. It's a similar sized town. We're not up against the Rocky Mountains, but we're up against the Oregon Coast Range. And we're just at the edge of the foothills of the Oregon Coast Range. So it's easy. There's a huge network of trails in the forest, in the hills. So it's easy to just take the dog out and let her go. She loves it.
Awesome. And then when it does get rainy, do you guys still go out and hike? And does the dog mind?
Oh, the dog, she does and she doesn't. I mean, it bugs her, but she still wants to be outside.
Okay.
And we do go out sometimes, but not as much. I walk her every day regardless of the rain.
Got it. Yeah. Not as eager to get out there and just get soaking wet. So, okay. Got it.
No.
All right. Well, I'm pumped to talk today, and it kind of was spawned through some conversations that you and I have had off the record and stuff. And then I read your blog post that you published just a couple weeks ago, and it was called "A Man of No Ambition." And just with the title, I was I was drawn to it. It was a good title. And I sort of feel that sometimes too, where I'm not sure what I should be working on. The drive that I had when I was younger is just not there. And
how old are you now?
I am 43.
43. Okay.
Yeah. And I remember, 10 years ago, I was a lot more eager to work on things, and I had a full-time job. So I was working hard there. And then I was working hard on my side hustles and stuff. And now I just, either I don't have the energy or interest or something. So yeah, this really struck a chord with me. And I thought the intro was great. So I'll let you, sort of talk about when you discovered that maybe you didn't have much ambition. And I'll talk about, and you could frame that however you want, because I said that in a very specific way. But yeah, I feel like right now I don't have a ton of ambition. So yeah, what do you think?
Well, I'm curious. I'm going to pick your brain first, because it sounds like you used to have ambition, but it's faded with time. And I'm wondering why you think that is. Do you think that your ambition has declined because you've reached a point where you don't need to be ambitious? Has your perception of the world changed? I mean, what is it? What is it that's changed that's caused your ambition to go away?
So I think that'll be something that I'll be trying to figure out for the next few years, most likely. But I think, part of it, I think, is energy level. And I think, when you're younger, maybe you just have a little bit more energy. And I think back to those years, the 20s and 30s, where, I could go out and drink and party and have a great time, not get much rest, work a ton, and just do that weeks on end. I'm not sure how I had that energy, but I know now, luckily I'm trying to cut back on drinking and partying and such and going to bed earlier. But if I do that one day, that hangover lasts for 3 days, not half a day. So I think part of it is, getting older and aging. The other part is exactly what you mentioned. where I was working really hard, say in the corporate world, trying to earn more, and I'm not sure what the exact goal was, but I, drank the Kool-Aid of the, the corporate culture, and I was going that route. And at some point, I, discovered the FIRE movement and kind of realized there was a different way to do things. And part of that was realizing that just earning more and more money and doing more and more is not a really good pursuit for me personally. I'm not here to judge anyone else if they want to do that. But for me,
Right, exactly.
didn't really make much sense. So like you said, at some point, maybe I did reach a point where, earning more money didn't really serve me well, and I needed to spend my time and effort somewhere else.
Yeah, for me, and I'll get to my own history with ambition in a minute, but for me, it's interesting to think in our culture in the United States, ambition is prized. I think most people look on it very favorably, and I know in the dating world, when I was younger, it's one of the things women always talk about. They want men who are ambitious. When I talked to Kim, my girlfriend, it's one of the things that appealed to her about me is she thought I was ambitious when we met. I wasn't, but I came across that way. And so it's just culturally, I think ambition is something that is prized or valued in general. And I don't think ambition is bad, but I don't think it's necessarily a virtue either. It can be hit or miss. So anyway, I don't know where I'm going with that other than
Sure.
something that occurred to me listening to you. It's like ambition doesn't have to be a bad thing, but it's not necessarily a good thing either. It's a quality.
Right. And it's probably like, so many things where in moderation, it's great. But if you take it to the extreme, then it's, toxic. Like, I mean, yeah, you could basically fill that in with anything. If you do too much of anything, it's probably not the best thing for you to do.
Yeah. For me, I look around, and this is something I wrote about in the article that you mentioned. I look around at my colleagues, and a lot of them are very ambitious. And it's great. I love seeing what they're doing. I don't mean to downplay what they're doing or to say that it's negative. But at the same time, I wonder if they think about, they're so ambitious. They have already accomplished so much. They have so much money. They have almost anything that's in the American dream. They've achieved it because they've worked so hard, but they keep working. And I wonder, do they ever ask themselves how much is enough? When is enough for them? And do they just want to keep doing this for the rest of their lives? And why? I mean, maybe it's a good thing for them to keep doing this, but
right. Well, and I have a specific friend, and probably more people that I know that they just didn't tell me directly. But one of my friends, he and I are in a mastermind group, so we get together maybe like once a month or so. And at first, it was more business focused. Now we're friends, so we'll kind of catch up on other stuff. But he, grew his business over a few years, and I think currently he's making, 20 to 30K per month, doing really awesome. So much more than he was making or thought that he could make years ago. And now he wants to make 100K a month. And I was like, you're so busy now. Like, why do you even want to do that? Like, you seem tired, kind of burned out. What will you do with 100K per month? And he was like, I don't know. I really want to do it. And it was purely, a comparison situation. So he knew one of our other friends is making 100K a month. So he wants to do that too for no reason other than like, if that dude can do it, I want to do it too. I like, he's so competitive. Right. And actually I'm pretty good friends with him. So I just asked him, do you have a chip on your shoulder? Like, who cares what that dude's doing? You're already doing better than you thought, better than like everyone in your family, American dream, all the stuff you said. And he said, yes, I absolutely have a chip on my shoulder. Like, I just want to prove to maybe himself or other people that he could do it too.
That's interesting. That whole comparison thing, I can see that drives a lot of people to try to get more. They compare themselves to others, especially their friends. And again, I want to temper things. I don't want to say all these things are bad. I just want people to ask questions. I want them to be deliberate about the decisions they're making. If your friend is going after that $100,000 a month, I want him to ask himself why. Why am I doing this? And is it a good thing? Is it the best use of my time?
Yeah, and I mean, and it could be, again, I think we're being really nice, JD. We're like, all right, if people want to do that, there is a reason. Like, that's cool. Like, if you want to do it, but probably there's like a better use of your time. I mean, the guy has like a young family. Like, I'm pretty sure he could spend those hours like with his family a little bit more and just like not be stressed out, you know? Because I think if you're trying to do that, like you have to have like a really strong drive and ambition, you know, like we're talking about. So
to get back, you had asked me about like my own story with ambition, and I derailed us here. But the whole reason I wrote the article at Get Rich Slowly about being a man of no ambition is because I am asking myself these questions. It has been a very rough year for me. 2022. Honestly, it's been one of the shittiest years of my life. It's just been one big thing after the other. And the example I'll give is it's been a year filled with death. I spent 2 months with my cousin, who was also my best friend, earlier in this year, as he was dying from cancer in hospice. I was there to decide when he died. Struggled with the grief related to that. Then a few months later, we had a cat die. I know it's just a cat. It's just a cat. But, it's a cat. It's right. Part of our family. And then about 2 months ago, my mother died. And even though she had been sick for a while and we knew it was coming, it's a huge thing. And dealing with that loss has been more difficult than I thought. And then just last week, we had another cat, a young cat, 5-year-old cat, who died of we had to put her down, but she was dying because of acute kidney failure. And none of the vets could figure it out. And so we had to put her down. And it was like the final straw. And so mentally, I feel like life has just been clubbing me over the head all year long. It's like, here, JD, you've had things good for so long. Let me deal you some shit. And it's made me question what it is I'm doing and what it is I want to do. And that's what put me in the headspace to write this article about my relationship with ambition and how, even though I'm a competitive person, especially with myself, not necessarily with other people, I've never really been ambitious. I've never been I'm somebody who could get good grades, but I never pursued them for the sake of getting good grades. I'm somebody who has made a lot of money at times, but I've never actually pursued money for the sake of making money. It's always just been a side effect. All this stuff has me thinking about ambition and what I want to do with my life. And it's funny. It's almost like I'm 53, but it's almost like I'm 23 trying to figure out, okay, where do I go from here?
Right. Well, I'm sorry. Of all the death that you've had to experience this year, and you guys don't have kids, right? No kids?
No kids. Yeah. So the animals are our kids.
Same here. Yeah, no kids. And devastating to lose a pet, like you said, member of the family. And, to back it up, I mean, everyone has to deal with death. Like,
sure.
This year has been intense for you. Do you feel like you have or had a good toolkit to deal with death, like mentally? I mean, we all know people are going to die around us, especially as we're getting older. So, yeah.
Sure. That's a great question. Yes, I felt in the past I've dealt with death well. I mean, I lost my father when I was young, my grandparents, and I've dealt with those deaths okay. And even this year when my cousin Nick died, even though that was a very intense 2 months being there at his side as he was dying, I dealt with that okay. It's just been this accumulation. I guess I wasn't prepared for just the hit after hit after hit. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. And, one other conversation we had, on my side, I don't know. I think, I generally have a good, toolkit or whatever to deal with death, but I haven't experienced anything like you described where it's just like one after another. So I've lost all my grandparents at this point, and my mother died 2 years ago. Cancer, right. She had pancreatic cancer, and she actually made it for about a year, which is pretty decent for pancreatic cancer. So we had some time to spend together, and I guess we knew it was coming for a little while. So
right, you had some closure.
Yeah. And we were able to spend quite a lot of time together the last year.
When people die that you're close to, it's interesting. So when my mother died, she had been living in the memory care unit of an assisted living facility. So it was as if she were in a dorm room with another woman who also had memory issues. And all of mom's possessions, because she'd been in the assisted living place for 10 years, we'd already sold much of what she owned, converted that to cash to pay for her living expenses. So when she died, she had a bed, a dresser, and then the clothes and things in the dressers, the dresser in the closet. And my sister-in-law, my God, when she saw this, it just tore her up inside that here's my mom, 74 years old, she dies, and all that she's left with is just these few possessions. And I thought about that when my cousin Nick died too, because, he was young, he was 58, but he dies and he's left with just an apartment of stuff. And mostly it's just clothes and pots and pans. And it when you see this and you see it over and over again in a short period of time, for me anyhow, it makes me question, what is it that's important in life? And is it these things, like we're talking about, working hard to make $100,000 a month? What is it that I want to leave behind?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm getting all deep and philosophical and doomy and gloomy. I know it.
No. This is good. I mean, these are the questions that, probably, I know for me, we probably avoid it because it's like not as pleasant to talk about as other stuff. So,
right.
And it's existential, and I guess the spoiler alert is we're not going to solve the problem by the end of this podcast, but it's good to talk through. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I think. I think of this year as my existential crisis. That's what I keep thinking about. I don't know whether you and I've talked about this before, but, a movie came out in March of this year called Everything Everywhere All at Once. Have you seen that film?
I haven't.
Are you familiar with it? To me, it's probably one of my favorite films of all time. And the premise of it is, again, this is Everything Everywhere All at Once. It stars Michelle Yeoh. She is a Chinese immigrant. She and her husband own a laundromat. The husband wants a divorce, although she doesn't know that. They're being audited by the IRS. Her overbearing father is visiting from China. Her lesbian daughter is angry at her all the time. And she's visited by an alternate version of her husband from a different dimension. And so this movie starts very tedious and it goes crazy really, really fast. It's like all these multiple dimensions and different versions of Michelle Yeoh and her husband. And so the first part of the movie is boring. The second part of the movie is weird. And then the third part gets really deep and philosophical. And it's like, whoa. And it's just an amazing film. And I keep going back to that because I feel like it summarizes just my experience with this year. And also, again, this question I keep asking myself about, like, what am I going to do with my life? What am I going to do with my life? And I realize there's all these different paths available to me.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy. Like you said, it's like we're, 23 years old trying to figure stuff out. We just happen to have 20 or 30 more years of knowledge. And we're just confused.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I still feel like I'm 20 years old or something like that.
Right.
And I talk to older people and they're like, I don't feel like I'm 70. I feel like I'm 30 or whatever.
Yep. We just have these old bodies that can't get around as much, and hangovers hit us harder. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And like you said, we have more experience and more knowledge, and we can apply that to the decisions we make. And for some people, that gives them clarity, having all this experience. But for me, it just makes everything more difficult. There's all these shades of gray. I'm like, all this experience makes me think, oh, well, there's no right answer. Well, that sucks.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, well, I mean, this is sort of the classic midlife crisis, right? Like, it fits in. Okay, so I guess let's talk about the ambition portion. So all this death and stuff happened. It sort of put you in a mind space of like, what's the point of having all this stuff? Like, what am I really trying to do? I think. So when I had this experience earlier in the year where I went to, it was basically like an entrepreneur's retreat. It's with this group called the Dynamite Circle. And they have a podcast, the Tropical MBA, that I listened to for a long time, but it's location independent entrepreneur, topics generally. And it was great. I mean, it's my kind of people. I get along with them well. We understand each other's business models and that sort of thing. But I was usually in a group where I was the absolutely like hands down least ambitious person. It was very clear because it's, what are you working on this year? What are you excited about? And I'm like, I'm trying to do less work. Like that's my answer basically, which is way less interesting than, the people who are, I'm trying to hit multiple 6 figures or 7 or 8 figures, and I have no interest in doing that at all. Like I kind of reached a point and I was like, if I just cruise here for a little while, I'm good. And it was really, well, it was eye-opening because I realized quickly, like this group is good, but I don't fit in as well as I used to because I don't have the ambition.
Right.
And you and I bumped into each other at FinCon briefly. As soon as I got there, I saw you right away, and then I never saw you again the whole time. But you had a similar experience at FinCon, right?
Yeah. So I have a group that I hang out with at FinCon, and it's a bunch of people who have been doing this sort of thing, blogging essentially, for 15, almost 20 years now. And these people I would consider them very ambitious. They're very successful. They're very smart. I love hearing their stories about how they're making money and what they're doing online. So, we were sitting around a table just talking about how our businesses are going. And, these other people are making, like your friend, $100,000 a month. Some are making multiple 7 figures per year. And it got to me and they're like, how are things going with Get Rich Slowly, JD? And I'm like, well, I'm making $500 a month. It's like $500 a month is like not anywhere near the same ballpark. And they were asking me, why so little? Why aren't you willing to do these other things? Why don't you do these other things that would help your site make more money? And there are a lot of answers to that question. One is I don't want to do all the work. I don't have to do all the work. Second, a lot of the things that make money, well, they're not unethical or immoral in any way. They do involve, like selling to my readers, and I don't want to sell to my readers. That's not my goal. That's fine for my friends. It's fine for most people, but that's not what I want to be. I want to be providing information, and if that allows me to make money, great. If not, also great. I think fundamentally, Doug, for me and my lack of ambition right now, I think it stems a lot from my childhood. I grew up very poor. Rural Oregon, this trailer house. We often had to rely on charity for food and clothing and so on. I feel like I'm overstating it. We were poor, but it's not like we were like destitute. But what I have now, when I look at the house I have now and the life I have now, it is beyond what I could have possibly imagined when I was a child. I have so much more than I ever dreamed I could have. And so I'm content with it. Sure, there are things that I want. I buy myself books. I bought myself a new car. Um, but why push myself? Why work so hard to get more? Why not just say, okay, this is basically enough?
Mm-hmm. And with the $500 a month or so that you're earning, is that sustainable for get rich slowly? Like, does it need to earn any more money for any reason?
No, I mean, you hear website owners talk a lot about, well, I have to make X amount of money to keep the lights on. And sure, there are some costs, but the reality is, no, I mean, the most expensive part of running Get Rich Slowly is the email list, and that costs $1,000 a year, maybe $1,500. I don't remember. But other than that, no, there aren't a huge amount of expenses, or a huge number of expenses with Get Rich Slowly. And in fact, one of my goals is by the end of the year to strip away all advertising. So it would literally be making $0 a month.
Okay.
And I'd be fine with that. I don't mind paying out of pocket to keep it going.
Got it. And would you ever consider like a donation model just for, people that want to do it?
Absolutely. And in fact, I think that's the direction I want to move. So, well, you probably know Picky and Kitty from Bitches Get Riches.
Oh, yeah.
I know that one of them lives near you. And Bitches Get Riches operates primarily on a donation model. And I need to set up a call with them. I've been talking for several months with them. Hey, I need to set up a call, and I haven't ever done it. I want to pick their brain about how that works.
Gotcha. Yeah, actually, well, Carl and I have set up a similar thing as them. I think I need to actually I'll ping them too, and maybe we can set up a call and figure out what they're working on exactly. But for this podcast, actually, like we probably need to grow a little bit more before we can get like sort of higher end advertisers. And that's just the reality. I mean, we get a good number of downloads, but I think we need more. That said, just like your hesitation to work with some of the companies, right? We could earn a lot with credit card referrals, other financial institutions, but we don't really give a fuck about those companies. And we'd prefer to just say whatever we want. Yeah. Carl and I were just, we just recorded an episode and we talked about, I think it was BlockFi, right? Remember BlockFi, the crypto bank, basically?
I knew it existed. I didn't know anything about it.
So they sponsored a bunch of events, FinCon stuff. They sponsored a lot of, I think, podcasts, because I think I heard some of their ads, and they just went under like last week. So I think bankruptcy. Ooh. Right. So, I mean, I'm cherry picking an example that proves my point, but that's just how things work. But basically, we don't want to like recommend a company because they have like high interest rates because it's crypto and some other stuff, and then they go under. Because then, I mean, if you listen to the commercials, people are like, oh, it's great. You could do all this stuff. I don't know if people, lost money or if they were able to get their money out or how it all went down. But basically, we'd prefer not to have to do that and not earn as much, but just have a donation model where, we can break even, maybe earn a little bit. That would be nice. So we do have a little ambition, just not as much as it used to be. So.
Honestly, I have a little ambition too. I mean, I talk about how I'm a man of no ambition. That's not quite true. I'm a man of little ambition is what I would say. So I have goals, I have dreams, but I don't allow them to dominate my being, I guess, my psyche.
Right. And so one thing that you mentioned, sort of the big point of a couple minutes ago, where you were like, do I need more stuff? Like you said, you got a new car recently, a couple other things. And one of the topics that we wanted to talk about is like having enough, and how do you gauge that? And there's all these different areas. One is sort of the retail things. Like I've been buying more guitars. There's one sitting behind me. I love them. It's fun. It's a good hobby for me to work on. Music's a good thing to spend time on. But there's other areas, our personal relationships. Maybe it's your own hobbies. Maybe it's fitness or whatever. So how do you like figure out where to spend your time?
That's a great question, Doug. I think it varies from person to person, obviously. But the key skill for determining what is enough or how to spend your time is getting clear on what's important to you and asking yourself questions, actually taking time to think about what it is you want to get out of life and what you want to do. Not in an ambitious sort of way necessarily, although maybe. But I look around at my family, and not all of my friends, but some of my friends, but definitely my family. And people seem to they live life. They don't have any clear direction that they're trying to head. They don't have any objectives. They're just kind of overwhelmed with the day-to-day. And sometimes that's because life is throwing so much at them. Again, like what I'm going through this year. I'm just having to deal with life as it comes this year. But a lot of times it's just they haven't taken the time to sit down and figure out, oh, well, this is what I'd like to accomplish. This is my grand objective for what I want my life to be when I reach the end of it. This sounds all heady and not arrogant, but just like over the top in a way. I know as I'm saying it out loud, I hear how overwrought it sounds. But I think it's important. It's when you read the psychology literature, it's very clear that people who have taken the time to figure it out what it is they want to accomplish in life, they tend to feel more fulfilled, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. And I think it goes back to spending time and your effort in an intentional way where,
Yes.
It ties in perfectly where like, life's happening to you and you can, just be complacent and just keep rolling with whatever you're dealt, or you can like make some big decisions. And I know my wife and I think probably, 35 years of our lives, like both of us just kind of went with the flow, kind of low resistance decisions. And then eventually we're like, we can make big decisions and like do things that will take effort, but they'll pay off big later. And like, whenever we've done that, it's been awesome to just like make a decision that kind of went against the flow. And then we ended up better on the other side. A lot of uncertainty, of course, because you're going against the flow.
Oh, sure. Yeah. The uncertainty is huge. And that can be really frustrating at times, right?
Yeah. And how do you deal with that? Are you pretty good with making a decision with like incomplete information? You don't know how it's going to turn out?
I used to be, but it's funny. Kim and I have had a lot of conversations recently because, again, when we started dating about a decade ago, just over a decade ago, it wasn't that I was ambitious, but I had a lot of stuff going on. I was doing a lot of different things. I was helping to organize a conference called the World Domination Summit. I was running Get Rich Slowly. I was taking Spanish lessons. I was taking guitar lessons. I was doing all these things, all these activities. And then now today, if I were to list everything that I'm doing, it would be nothing. I'm not actually doing much of anything at all. I'm doing Get Rich Slowly, but I'm actually on a sabbatical from it right now. So I'm doing nothing. And so we had a conversation recently. And I know how I got here where I'm doing nothing. But my key or my challenge now is to figure out, okay, what is it I want to do? Again, we've talked about this several times during this podcast, is I need to be like a 23-year-old figuring out what's coming next in my life. And that is what I've been working on almost the entirety of my time is spent like thinking about what does come next. And it sounds super, super selfish, but what I've decided is 2023 is the year of JD, is the year of me. Kind of like Seinfeld, where it's the year of George or whatever it was. I just need to take time to focus on myself and get back to where I was in 2012, 2013, where I was doing all these different things because I was so focused on myself. I was taking the time to say, oh, I want to learn Spanish. I want to learn guitar. I want to do CrossFit. I was doing CrossFit. So this next year, that is what I'm going to focus on, is just making decisions for myself. Even if it feels super selfish in the moment, I'm going to do it because I know that once I've got myself taken care of, I'll be much better able to help other people.
Got it. And you have a mission statement, right?
I do. That's right. I might need to update that too.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to say, what is it currently, or what has it been operating as? And we'll link up to it so people can read it verbatim. But yeah, it sounds like maybe it'll shift a little bit coming up. Let's
see if I can I'm Googling it as we type, but let's see if I can recall it without looking it up. So I've said that my personal mission statement is, I want to experience everything that life has to offer. And this is very true. I love meeting people, doing things, trying new foods. I just love the adventure of it all. So I want to experience all that life has to offer. I want to say yes to life. And then I want to take what I'm learning and share that with other people. So fundamentally, that has been my mission statement. And I'm going to be curious to see how close I've got here. And I still feel as if that is what I'm fundamentally after. But maybe it just manifests itself in a different way. Maybe it's no longer doing get rich slowly, honestly. We'll have to find out. Okay, let's see if I've got my personal mission statement here. Yeah, this is the personal mission statement that I wrote about 10 years ago, and it's the one I've been operating from. And here it is, verbatim. I want to be the best person I can be, both mentally and physically. I want to sample all that the world has to offer by fostering new relationships, exploring new ideas, and daring to try new things. I want to use my skills and experience to improve the lives of others while also improving my own.
Solid.
That's it. Yeah. And I read that and I'm like, even now I'm like, hell yeah, that's exactly what I want to do.
Yeah.
So
I don't have a mission statement.
We should work on that.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I'll just take yours, maybe just adapt it a little bit. You've already put the time in.
For me, I read that mission statement and I've been good about like sharing, trying to help other people, but I've been less good about being the best person that I can be. This is where I'm falling down, is I've stopped somewhere along the way. I stopped going to the gym, for example. I did CrossFit for years and years. And now, instead of being the fittest of my life, which I was 10 years ago, I'm the fattest of my life right now. Just this morning, I stepped on the scales, hit 215, exactly matches my peak weight. I'm in bad shape. Yeah. So I need to focus on myself and then continue to help other people.
It sounds like, the mission statement can hold up, but it's just like you drifted from, some of the focus on yourself for whatever, various reasons. And, there's a drift that happens. I mean, I know it wasn't like overnight, like you just stopped working out completely. It was probably just like over a little while, like you got out of the habit or whatever.
That's exactly right. Kim and I were looking at, I wear an Apple Watch and it tracks all sorts of metrics. I was looking at some of the metrics the other day, and it's very clear that it's around 2000, at the beginning of 2019 is where the fitness really began to erode.
Okay.
Anyway, doesn't matter. So for you and yourself, so you've never like sat down and tried to go through like a mission statement exercise or
no?
Have you done any kind of exercise like pursuing your purpose?
Not very much. I think like I had a bad taste in my mouth from the corporate mission statement. So I thought that sounds like something I don't want to do. So I kind of loosely, and by the way, everyone, we do hear the dog. Everything okay over there, JD?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. I didn't know whether you could hear that or not. I have a hound dog, and she's just letting us know that something is not right in the neighborhood.
Okay. Very good.
I can shut
It's
the
good. No, it's okay. It's all right. It's raw here, and we like animals, so it's cool. Yeah, so I haven't done a specific mission statement and, thinking of the purpose and some of those other details. Yeah, I have a little bit of a hard time because of, how the work that I have been doing has shifted. And I know, one thing which is actually not great to say out loud, but, some people are like, I want to, whatever, teach 10,000 entrepreneurs or like share my message with like a certain number of people. And they really, it sounds like they really want to give a lot away. And I don't have that specific drive. I think like, I don't really care that much. It's great if people watch the videos and listen to the podcast and all that stuff. But if they don't, it's okay with me. And I have definitely run across, people in our space that are like, I want to help, again, 10,000 people start 10,000 side hustles or whatever. And I'm like, if people want to do something with it, that's great. But if they don't, no skin off my back. I actually don't care that much. So I don't know what that says about me exactly, but
you're a man of no ambition.
Yeah, actually, yeah, full circle. That's exactly it. I'm like, they could do something if they want, but I don't care.
When I think about my own lack of ambition, again, it comes back to my childhood and growing up poor. When I was a kid, I got good grades, but it was because I was super interested in learning. I wasn't pursuing the grades for the sake of the grades. I remember in fourth grade, we had this chart on the wall in the fourth grade classroom, and it was every book we read. And I just decided, my school had quarters. And so they were 9-week quarters, 63 days. And I decided one quarter, I'm going to read one book every day. And we literally got little gold stars for every book. And we had to write a book report for each one. And so I read 63 books, wrote 63 book reports. But it wasn't because I was ambitious. It was because I loved to read. And I thought, these gold stars are fun.
Yeah.
And
that's funny.
That was what I was after.
And I did like getting good grades, and I think, I tested pretty well, and I could study and focus, so I was able to get good grades. But then I can't remember. It must have been around the college time frame where I realized no matter what I'm working on, there's always going to be someone better, right? So, I think that's true, right? There's always someone who's a little better, or they'll work harder or whatever. And I think that sort of, it was my way to justify, I could justify anything, by the way, but that was my way to justify less effort and just, we could do good enough, and that's probably fine. And then of course, when I got, a corporate job, then there's, 50, I was average at best. So there's like 50% of my peers are better than me, at least. So then it was really easy. I'm like, I'm not going to be the best. So it's really easy to talk myself out of trying too hard.
So you just used a phrase that has become, do I want to say central in my life? It's a guiding phrase, and that is good enough. Growing up, I was taught that good enough seldom is. And my teachers, my parents wanted me to always do better. But I've learned that no, for myself, good enough is generally, it's what I want. So have you read the book, The Paradox of Choice by Barry Schwartz?
I haven't read it. I'm familiar with it.
Yeah. The core conceit is that we think we want more options in life, but the reality is more options actually make it more difficult for us. And We want fewer options. We don't want only one or two. We want a few, maybe 5 or 6, but we don't want 50 because 50 just makes it hard. So one of the things he talks about in the book is what he calls maximizers and satisficers. And I'm going to use shopping for a car as an example, because I just shopped for a car a couple months ago. When shopping for a car, a maximizer is driven to find the best possible vehicle at the best possible price. And they're going to spend so much time and effort to maximize the choice, right? To find the best car, the best price. A satisficer is okay with good enough. They're okay with just finding a good car at a good price. And I used to be a maximizer, believe it or not, about a lot of things. So if I were to buy a computer, for example, I would spend so much time researching what is the best computer, what's the best price. And then it would take me a long time to do it. And then I would buy the computer, and inevitably I'd be like, oh, but this other computer had a better processor or whatever it is. And that's the struggle that maximizers face, is they're spending so much time trying to find the best. And in most instances in life, there is no the best. So they're almost never happy. They're almost never content with what they choose. Whereas satisficers generally are happier with their choices because they've chosen something that's good enough, and their choice usually is good enough. And
yeah, that is amazing. And the thing is, my wife is a maximizer. She sits upstairs, so I can't talk too loud. But and I am, satisficer, and I knew that I kind of was, and then once I was exposed to the idea, I leaned into it even more. And I'm like, oh, there are areas that I spend too much time researching, or even worse, you second guess the decision after it's been made.
Yes.
It's so toxic. So hopefully I can get my wife to shift over, but she actually, for some reason, she identifies as a maximizer even after I told her about this concept. So I'm like, it's worse. It's worse. Cause generally I am happier. I'm happier than her. And part of it is if you spend so much time figuring out every decision, it's a little bit stressful. Usually it's not that positive. And then, like I said, even worse, the second guessing decisions that you have made in the past is kind of a bad idea.
It's like the Pareto principle, the 80-20 thing. It's like you want to do 80% of the effort. I forget how all that works.
Yeah. 20% of the effort to get 80% of the results.
That's it. That's right.
Yeah.
So this reminds me, I was at a Camp FI once, and a bunch of us went out to, who was this that I was with? I'm sorry, I can't remember if they're listening. I apologize for not remembering who this was. It could have been Doug Nordman. But we were all out to dinner at a restaurant, and this person picked up the menu. They set it down almost instantly. They just knew what they wanted. And meanwhile, the rest of us are, poring over the menu, trying to find the best item. And I asked the person, you didn't even look at the menu. How did you know what? They're like, I saw something I wanted. I don't need to look at the rest of the menu. I know I'm happy with that. And that kind of blew my mind. And yet I've adopted that over the last 3 or 4 years. And I do that now too in restaurants. And I'm so much happier. This is part of being a satisficer instead of a maximizer. I start with the menu. I go until I find one item that I want, and I stop. I put it down. That's good enough.
Yep. It's great. Yeah, it removes, and there's, it's a low consequence, right? Worst case scenario, you hate the food, you can order something else or choke it down, right? It's not going to be that bad.
Right.
But so many decisions, not every decision, but so many are reversible. So you can just make a decision quickly. And then if you have to, you can fix it later, but probably you don't have to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's see. One other point before we wrap up here, and I think it's important to highlight here. So, and you mentioned this specifically, JD, before we started recording. So how can you differentiate a lack of ambition or having enough for mental health problems? And you can sort of, back into the context of why we should talk about this.
Yeah, that's a good question. We were talking a little bit before the show. So for those who don't know, I've struggled with my mental health my entire life. I've been struggling with depression since at least sixth grade. There was a period of 5 weeks in sixth grade where I missed school, and I didn't know why at the time. I've had access to my records and the notes my parents had, and it was depression. And looking back, yeah, absolutely. So anyway, I struggled with depression my whole life. And as an adult, especially in the last 5 years, I've struggled with anxiety. And one of the ways that depression manifests itself is a lack of ambition, right? A lack of getting things done, a lack of, you feel mired in mud. I was just talking with another prominent person in the financial independence space the other day who also struggles with depression. Don't want to name her name. But we were talking about how when you're going through a depressive episode, it's like you're just wading through water trying to accomplish anything. It just slows you down. And so that can look a lot like a lack of ambition, right? It's you have things that need to be done and you don't do them. And honestly, Doug, I don't know how to differentiate sometimes between what is genuinely a state where you just don't have ambition or drive, and what is the depression. And maybe they're the same. Maybe that's why I've always had a lack of ambition. I don't know. What is it your experience?
I don't know. I don't have the same anxiety or depression history as you. I think, the times when I get down, it's usually just probably, a couple days, maybe every 6 weeks or a quarter or something like that. And I think, especially in the context of ambition in our conversation today, like, I think if I am motivated to do other shit, so, we're talking like work stuff and we're like, we don't really like, the money is not a good motivator for us right now. Not anymore. Maybe we don't have as much energy to do the same kind of work and all that. But if I am motivated to go hiking or, do something else, usually some kind of fitness or athletic thing, or just being outside. So something outside. So if I have that motivation, then, I think, that is ambition. It's just nothing to do with work, nothing to do with earning money or anything like that. So I think that for me specifically, that would be the differentiator. So if I'm just like, I don't want to do shit and I just want to sit around and like whatever, scroll through social media or something, like that is probably like that's clearly me being depressed.
Yeah. And I think you've hit on something very important kind of indirectly here. So again, I come at all of this, at the personal finance stuff, through the lens of psychology, because I have a psychology degree. I read psychology books. Oh yeah, you can see here in the corner of the picture, I have a stack of psychology books that I need to shelve. And one of the things that the psychology literature clearly says is that when we are feeling unmotivated, like when you're depressed, so many of us wait around for motivation to come before taking action. But the literature clearly says that you need to act regardless of whether you're feeling motivated, because that action will create motivation. And it seems counterintuitive, but it's true. You're talking about getting outside, going for a hike. In my case, like if I need to clean the house, just to use an example, I'm never going to want to clean the house. But if I start working on it, I'll get into it after about 5 or 10 minutes. I'll be like, okay. And then I can do it for an hour or two.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. That's, I was going to say, I don't read the same, this psychology stuff, but I see that in a lot of the happiness books. So people are referencing it. So yeah, that makes total sense. And maybe I've sort of internalized that where I'm like, if I'm not feeling that great, like at least I can like get out of the house, and go walk around outside. Like that's another like really positive thing. Get some sunlight, be outside, away from like, all the, right angles and buildings and all that stuff, and like go walk on a trail
right
or something.
Angles. Yes. I love that. Get away from the right angles.
Yeah.
But it's true.
Yeah. There's something to it.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, this is one of the reasons that in the fitness books, so many times people are saying, hey, don't make it a goal to get to the gym and work out for a half an hour or whatever. Just make it a goal to go to the gym. Just touch the door or step inside. And that's because you do that. You go to the gym, touch the door, step inside, whatever. You're going to be like, okay, I'll go get on the treadmill, or I'll go do some squats, whatever. You'll actually, by taking that small action, you'll be like, okay, now I have motivation to do the workout.
Yeah, just get your foot in the door, and if you're already there, you may as well. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
Although I will say that there was a time, this is 6-7 years ago. This is when I was in CrossFit still. There were days I would get up, because I would work out at 6:30 in the morning. I would get up, I would go touch the door, and then go home. It only happened like 2 or 3 times, but I'm like, nah, fuck it. I am not in the mood today.
Not today. It's funny.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, JD, this has been awesome. Any other, final thoughts before we wrap it up today?
I'm curious to have you work through some sort of exercise for creating a personal mission statement or finding purpose, because I would love to hear what it is that it comes out of that for you. I don't know which exercises to recommend, because I don't know which ones would be up your alley, but
sure.
I don't know.
I'll look into it. I said I haven't done anything, but probably the closest was in the 4-hour work week. You write out your dream line, which is your dreams on a timeline. And, a lot of it, actually, I was able to accomplish it. Like I never went back to it, but that, it was kind of a list of priorities of what I wanted to spend time on. And like I said, it turned out great because, subconsciously, I guess I was pursuing those things, but not directly. I didn't pin it on my wall. We filed it, and I didn't look at it for 5 or 6 years, something like that.
That reminds me, probably 2005, 2006, somewhere back then, I came up with a list. I can't remember if it was 50 things or 100 things that I wanted to accomplish. And now I'm dying to know, how many of these did I accomplish? It was basically creating a bucket list. And I know I published it on the web. It's got to be there somewhere. I just got to figure out how to find it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll talk about that next time. We'll get a little update, and maybe I wrote down as a homework assignment. I'm not saying I'm going to do it. This whole episode was a lack of ambition, and but I have a homework assignment to consider looking at. Is that soft enough? Consider looking at writing a mission statement.
It sounds exactly like how I would say it. I will consider doing this.
Yeah. I'll try to choose a method to write a mission statement. That's the equivalent of touching the doorknob of the gym.
Yeah, so, exactly right. Exactly right.
Cool. Awesome, JD. Well, yeah, we will, we'll try to chase this stuff down. So the next time we record, we can do a little update at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
All right. Thanks, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
Thanks for listening to the show. That was the MHFi podcast, and I'm Doug Cunnington, the balder host, and Carl Jensen is the cool, sexy one. If you dig the show, please do 3 things for us. Number 1, tell a friend, a family member, an enemy about the show. We really don't care who you tell. Maybe forward them a specific show that you know that they will like. It's the single most helpful thing that you can do to spread the word. It's like giving us a virtual high five, and actually we don't give high fives in person, so the virtual kind's pretty good. And more importantly, your friend or family member or even your enemy will appreciate the fact that you were thinking of them. Number 2, make sure you're following or subscribed on your podcast app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, YouTube, whatever you're using, and that way you won't miss a show. And number 3, please leave us a rating and review. We read them on the show occasionally, and you might hear yours out there on an upcoming episode. Quick disclaimer. This show is not financial or legal advice. I'd actually be surprised if it sounded like it. It's really just for entertainment, and that's at least what we're hoping for. But seriously, get advice from professionals. Carl and I are just two guys with microphones that sit in my basement and talk. So we'll catch y'all next week.